All right, so as you can see, this is a different day, a different background, and that day was rough. Rough in the waves and rough in the fishing. We fished for a few hours, did not, well, I caught and lost too, but we did not get a fish. We were beat to death out there. So, but I wanted to share the footage. We are still fishing, um, just not getting a chance to edit a whole lot of that. And catching has been been a challenge, but hopefully that will change soon. But enjoy this little tutorial on how to make some really cheap rod socks. I will come back with a spreadsheet in true my style shortly.
Rod socks. So for me, I carry a lot of rods, quite a few leaning over there. Um, for me, this is a lot about time. So I don't get to fish very often. And when I do, I need to be able to get my rods out quickly. I need them to be untangled. And also taking a lot of rods allows me to quickly change lures so that I'm not constantly retying. I can just pick up a jig rod or a Texas rig rod or a Carolina rig or whatever I'm gonna do without having to cut and retie. So I want to be able to get those rods out quick. And a few different things when I go into about rod socks that kind of annoy me, and I'm trying to perfect it a little bit and also do it for really cheap. So a little bit of the why behind this. So this is your standard baitcaster rod sock. This is a 7'10", I think, KVD cranking stick. And excuse the mess in the background. I got some other things going on, but I noticed this is just like, this one's got a little piece of rope in there, and that's just heat shrink. And this is stuff that people use for low voltage, like surround sound. It's basically gathering wires together. So a few things I don't like about regular rod socks. First of all, number one is this cost about, I don't know, $6, $5-6. But also, like, these are really nice to snuggle on this rod, so I'm not complaining about that. But this is a spinning reel rod sock. This has been through it. But I would use these because they were more universal, and you can see I've got a spinning rod over there with one right now. But the problem was these take up a lot of room, and they tend to get hooked more easily. So the solution that I came up with is this. You can buy this stuff. This is 1 inch, and you'll see it as PET or a nylon cable sleeve. It's actually very similar to what, like, this boat's a really old boat, but you see it's very similar to what they use to cover the throttle cables with, and it's very durable. It does get hooked. I mean, that's just part of it. But like, this is the actual finished product here. So I'm gonna take this rod. I'm actually going to get this rod untangled. As I said, that this will keep them getting tangled. But this is a finished product, and you see I have floats on my rods because I kayak, you see down there, and also the kids in the boat have knocked a rod out before. I kind of hate the floats. That's something that I wish I could find a better way to do, but I digress. But that means I can make these rod socks the exact length that I need. So from there to here, and it won't get in the way of the float, it won't get hooked or anything like that. Step one is I need to sew this end, and I need to make it into something that won't fray, and this stuff does fray really easy. The trick I found is if I kind of push this open a little bit and then roll it, and you have to be aggressive, and it is going to shred a little bit. Just kind of work your hands around it, kind of keep pushing those ends down, and start turning it almost like you're trying to turn it inside out. Work it and work it, and you're going to lose, a few inches of your material doing this, but I feel like doing this well and being generous with the amount of material, it's probably going to make it last longer and make it easier to use as well, and keep it from fraying up in the future. But you see it's getting really rigid as I try to roll this down. Usually I try to roll it like twice, and that's about as much as you can get of this 1 inch. Notable is that, so we've got this now, so I'll take some scissors and trim away any of these extra little ends, make it look cleaner. But notable, this is 1 inch, like I said, 100 feet. This is $22, and I will put all the links in the description and put some math on how this turns out. These are pretty snug. I found out if you go up much bigger than this, it starts getting pretty expensive. I don't think it's still as expensive as buying them, but when you start putting in your time and effort to make these, it could get a little more expensive. And I'll get to the matches and the candle in a second. So I'm gonna back us up for just a minute, couple things we need. Let's go over our supply list. One, of course, is our PET nylon wire sleeving. Number two is a candle that's not just lit for the ambiance of the garage. Number three is some heat shrink tubing. This is pretty big. I don't know what gauge it's made for. I tend to buy it like in a variety pack. I will post a link to some online. The candle is so that I can very, very slowly and controlled shrink this heat shrink around that nylon without messing it up. I'm also going to need some fishing line. This is just some, I like braid. Braid's going to be easier to keep a knot in. And I use this is a sewing needle that has a little bit of a bend to it. This is my wife's. I will try to find something, like I said, to link so you guys have an idea. But I'll show you the trick on why I like that hook or that curved needle. And then, of course, some scissors. So the next thing we're going to do is sure up this little, I don't know what you call that. Somebody can tell me what the appropriate term is where I have reinforced it. So I'm going to thread this fishing line through the needle. And like I said, I really like this curved needle. I'll take it, I'll feed it through here. See, it already is curving out. And grab it, and I'm just going to tie up a couple of knots. And I'm going to do this a few times, usually 4 is what I've been doing on my other ones. And just make sure I get this good and tight. I'm using this yellow because it's just what I had laying around. I do have some black up there, but it's 50 pound, and I don't know how well it would work through that needle. So just some simple overhand knots. I know somebody out there probably sews and has a better way of doing this, but this is the way that I'm doing it. And there we go. The next thing is going to be to just trim everything up, tighten it up, clean it up. And then we will move to the other side and do this, like I said, about 3 or 4 times. But I will pause now and then I will show you the finished product. I don't want you to have to sit here and see, nothing as I try to thread this line. It's almost too big for this needle through the hole. All right, so that is complete, and you can see I've got a few of these little knots on this braid around. So next step is going to be to put this on our rod. So we're just going to slide this on like we would any other rod sock, and you see how it kind of catches on the eyes a little bit. It's because it's tight, and that's what I want it to be, about as narrow as I can get it. If it starts getting a little jammed up, you can kind of push it and it'll open up a little bit, but I wanted to get it down to there. And I'm going to go out to the ends of the rod so I can feel, there's the tip of the rod. I'm going to go to about here, and I want to cut it real quick. So just real quick, what I did is I cut it, but I left a little bit, maybe 1.5 inches, 2 inches here, and you'll see why in a second. So now for the candle and the heat shrink. So I'm going to cut off. I noticed the ones that I bought a long time ago, those rod socks, have about 1 inch, 1.5 inches of heat shrink on there. We just went with about 1 inch, and those are folded up like this and put in there. It might be the best way. I haven't found a better way. I kind of roll it a little bit and then try to get all the little strands in there that I can as gently as I can. And I'm gonna push it almost to the end of the heat shrink, like I can almost feel it, and then back it up just a hair. And now we're going to do this number right here. But the reason I'm using a candle, like I said, instead of a heat gun or a torch, is just try to keep the heat lower. And I can do this slower and try not to set this on fire or burn the actual tubing. So those of you who haven't used heat shrink before, I try to go around and around and get it to slowly tighten up on every side. Saw it start to smoke a little bit there. It got too hot on that one side. So I'm trying to get as tight as I can without setting it on fire. Once it sets on, you can see it burn. It's like after that, it doesn't really shrink as much. Giving you an idea on the sewing too. I think it took me about, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes. So you can see this looks pretty good. And I don't know if it's at full strength right after it shrinks, but I'm gonna put it on the rod and show you the finished result. All right, so here we go. So see, it comes down to just above this float. I actually probably stretch out a little further and get closer if I wanted to. Go down here, and there we go. This took me about 5 to 10 minutes tops. You know, the sewing and that rolling part is the worst. So if anybody has a better idea there, let me know. But, you know, this one, let's just press pause for a second. So this is a 7-foot rod, and you probably don't use rod floats like I do, but if you were to take this down to there, I guess you're adding on a few more inches, but right now I'm at 56 inches of, I will say 59 inches because I'll say we had to roll this up. So we'll round to 60. So about 5 feet of this for a rod sock for this rod. You know, if you were to back this up, let's say right now it ends at 51, it goes to about, let's say you would want the rod sock to go to about 61, depending on if you want it to actually get in the hooks of your bait. So, you know, you're really still looking at about another 5 or 6 inches there. So even if you do 6 foot 6 inches, so you're looking at, you know, 78 inches thereabouts. It was 100 feet of this stuff. Still gonna give you quite a few rod socks. City fishing video without a spreadsheet. So I did the math on this, and you know, I really upped the size of the rod sock length just to be safe and overestimate what our cost would be. There's 1,200 inches on a roll. The cost of a roll was $22.99. You can see it's about 2 cents, and I'll speed up really quick and just go down and tell you that it cost about $2.09 per rod sock, and that's being very generous. I'm adding even in the cost of the candle, you know, so I'm trying to really take this down to a granular level and show that this probably was a good investment on my part. I have since made rod socks for all of my rods and still have a ton of material left. Well, thank you all for watching. Like I said earlier, you know, the toughest part of this is that sewing and that rolling of that material. So if you have a better solution, definitely let me know. I'm interested to even perfect this a little further. I don't plan on selling them or anything, but I want to get all of my rods more uniform. Even the ones I have rod socks for now, the bait casters, I'm probably going to make new ones just to make everything uniform. And that way from somebody else's boat, I know which rods and rod socks are mine. But thank you for watching. This one's broken.